Falling in love isn't random. Discover Jung's two invisible forces. Have you ever met someone and felt an immediate, inexplicable connection? That strange sensation that you've known them forever despite having just met? The uncanny feeling that they understand parts of you that even you don't fully comprehend? What if I told you that this phenomenon, what we call falling in love, isn't random chance but guided by invisible psychological forces that have been shaping your romantic destiny since childhood? Carl Jung, one of history's most brilliant psychological minds, uncovered two powerful unconscious forces that determine who we're drawn to, who we fall for, and why some relationships feel like magic while others feel like torture. These forces work silently in your psyche, pulling the strings behind every swipe right, every flutter of your heart, every relationship that transforms your life. Today I'm going to reveal these two invisible forces and show you exactly how they're influencing your love life right now, whether you realize it or not. Before we continue, if you're new here, consider subscribing to join our community exploring the depths of Jungian psychology and its profound insights into relationships. Hit that notification bell to ensure you never miss our weekly explorations of the unconscious mind. What Jung discovered about love might disturb you at first. It challenges our romantic notion that love is purely spontaneous and magical. But I promise, understanding these forces won't diminish the wonder of love. It will deepen it, allowing you to make conscious choices that lead to more fulfilling connections. The first invisible force Jung identified is what he called the anima in men and the animus in women, your inner opposite gender archetype that projects itself onto potential partners. The second force is your shadow, the rejected and repressed aspects of yourself that you're unconsciously seeking in others. Together, these forces create what Jung termed the alchemy of relationship, a transformative process that can either lead to profound personal growth or devastating heartbreak. Have you ever noticed yourself attracted to the same type of person over and over, even when it leads to the same painful outcomes? That's not coincidence, that's these invisible forces at work. And by the end of this video you'll understand exactly why that happens and how to break the cycle. Let's begin our journey into Jung's profound understanding of love by exploring the mysterious power of projection, the psychological mechanism that makes us believe we've found our soulmate when we've actually found a mirror. According to Jung, each of us carries within our unconscious mind an image of the opposite gender, a psychological counterpart that represents qualities we've been conditioned to repress in ourselves. For men, this is the anima, the feminine aspect of the male psyche. For women, it's the animus, the masculine aspect of the female psyche. These inner figures aren't just abstract concepts. They're powerful psychological forces that shape who we're attracted to and how we experience love. When you meet someone who resembles your inner anima or animus, something extraordinary happens. Projection. Projection is when we unconsciously transfer these internal images onto a real person. Suddenly, this stranger isn't just someone attractive. They feel like destiny, like they complete something in you that you didn't even know was missing. This is what creates that powerful sensation of love at first sight. Your unconscious mind recognizing something deeply familiar in someone new. The fascinating thing about the anima and animus is that they're formed in childhood, primarily through our relationships with our opposite gender parent or caretakers. A boy's anima develops through his interactions with his mother and other female figures. A girl's animus forms through her experiences with her father and other male influences. This is why our romantic attractions often follow mysterious patterns that we don't consciously choose. Your unconscious mind is seeking external figures who match these internal images, drawn to qualities that resonate with your earliest experiences of the opposite gender. But here's where Jung's insight becomes particularly powerful. The anima and animus don't just seek replicas of our parents. Instead, they seek complementary energies, qualities we lack or have suppressed in ourselves. When we're unconscious of this process, we often find ourselves mysteriously attracted to people who embody what we've denied in ourselves. Think about your past relationships for a moment. Can you see any patterns? Do certain personality traits appear repeatedly in your partners? Those patterns aren't random, they're your anima or animus guiding your attractions, often without your conscious awareness. The depth psychologist James Hollis describes this phenomenon perfectly. We are looking for someone to have and to hold, but we are necessarily looking for someone to complete what is missing or wounded in us, someone who will make us whole. But the anima and animus aren't static. They evolve through distinct stages as we mature psychologically. Understanding these stages can help you identify where you are in your own development and what your unconscious might be seeking in relationships. For the anima in men, Jung identified 4 stages of development. The first stage is the purely instinctual and biological, represented by Eve, the mother figure. Men at this stage are often drawn to nurturing women who will take care of them. Their relationships tend to be characterized by dependency and mother-son dynamics. The second stage is the romantic and aesthetic, represented by Helen of Troy. Here, the anima has become somewhat more individualized but is still largely projected as an idealized romantic figure. Men at this stage often fall in love with an image rather than the real person. The third stage is the spiritual and transcendent, represented by the Virgin Mary. At this level, the anima becomes a guide to spiritual meaning, and relationships become more about shared values and purpose than mere romantic attachment. The fourth and most evolved stage is wisdom, represented by Sophia. Here, the man has integrated his feminine side so thoroughly that he no longer projects it outward as heavily. His relationships become true partnerships between equals. For women, the animus also develops through stages. First is the physical embodiment of power, represented by the athletic hero or warrior. Women at this stage may be drawn to physically powerful men who represent strength and protection. Second is the man of action and independence, someone who can engage with the world effectively. Women at this stage often seek partners who demonstrate competence and agency. Third is the bearer of the word, the teacher, speaker, or spiritual guide. At this stage, women may be attracted to intellectual men who articulate meaning and purpose. Fourth is the incarnation of spiritual meaning, the wise guide who bridges inner and outer worlds. Women at this stage seek partners who embody both wisdom and compassion. Understanding these stages gives you tremendous insight into your own attraction patterns. Are you consistently drawn to partners at a particular stage? This might indicate where your own psychological development stands, and what your unconscious is seeking to complete in yourself. Where do you find yourself in these developmental stages? Are you projecting an idealized image onto your partners, only to be disappointed when they reveal themselves as complex human beings with flaws and contradictions? The ultimate goal, according to Jung, isn't to find someone who perfectly matches your inner image. It's to become conscious of these projections so you can relate to others as they truly are, not as carriers of your unconscious content. Now let's explore Jung's second invisible force, the shadow. If the anima and animus represent our inner opposite gender, the shadow contains all the aspects of ourselves that we've rejected, repressed, or denied. These aren't necessarily negative qualities, though they often include traits we've learned to consider unacceptable. Your shadow might contain your aggression if you were taught to always be nice, or your vulnerability if you were raised to be tough, or your ambition if you were conditioned to be humble. What does this have to do with love? Everything. When we fall in love, we're often unconsciously attracted to people who express our shadow qualities, the parts of ourselves we've disowned but secretly long to integrate. Your controlled, disciplined personality might be magnetically drawn to someone spontaneous and free-spirited. Your rational mind might fall for someone deeply intuitive and emotional. This is why opposites so often attract. We're unconsciously seeking wholeness through our partners. We want them to embody what we cannot express in ourselves. Jung called this compensation, the psyche's attempt to balance itself through relationship. But there's a darker side to shadow projection in relationships. We also tend to project our negative shadow qualities onto partners, attributing to them the flaws we can't acknowledge in ourselves. The qualities that most irritate you in others are often disowned aspects of yourself. This creates a fascinating paradox. We're simultaneously attracted to and repulsed by the same qualities in our partners. We want them to express what we cannot, but we also judge them for possessing the very traits we've rejected in ourselves. Marie-Louise von Franz, one of Jung's closest collaborators, put it this way: the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. This transformation is most powerful when we recognize our shadow projections for what they are, not truths about our partners, but aspects of ourselves seeking integration. When your partner's behavior triggers an intense emotional reaction, ask yourself, what might this be showing me about myself? What disowned part of me am I seeing reflected back? The person who annoys you most might be your greatest teacher. A mirror showing you exactly what you need to acknowledge and integrate within yourself. The shadow doesn't just influence who we're attracted to, it shapes the entire course of our relationships. The initial romantic phase often gives way to conflict precisely when these shadow projections begin to cause friction. This is why many relationships follow a predictable pattern: idealization, disillusionment, conflict, and either growth or separation. When Jung explored the dynamics of intimate relationships, he often used the metaphor of alchemy, the medieval practice of attempting to transform base metals into gold. For Jung, Relationships were alchemical vessels in which two people could potentially transform each other through the power of conscious love. This alchemical process follows distinct stages that parallel the ancient alchemical work. First comes the nigredo, the blackening. This is when the initial romantic projection fades, and we begin to see our partner's flaws and limitations. The perfect image we projected onto them dissolves, often leading to disappointment and conflict. Many relationships end at this stage because people mistake this necessary disillusionment for falling out of love. But if the couple perseveres, they enter the albedo, the whitening. This is when both partners begin to recognize and withdraw their projections, seeing each other more clearly. There's a purification of expectations as they learn to accept each other as they truly are, not as carriers of their unconscious material. The third stage is the citronitis, the yellowing. Here, the relationship becomes a conscious vehicle for growth. Both partners recognize that their conflicts and challenges aren't obstacles to happiness but opportunities for development. They begin to understand how they can help each other integrate their shadow aspects and become more whole. Finally comes the rubedo, the reddening. This is when the relationship transforms into something truly alchemical, a union of differentiated individuals who complement rather than complete each other. At this stage, love becomes a conscious choice rather than an unconscious compulsion. Both partners remain distinct while creating something greater than themselves through their connection. Very few relationships reach this final stage because it requires immense psychological work from both partners. It demands that we face our own shadows, withdraw our projections, and love the other person for who they truly are, not for how well they carry our unconscious material. As Jung himself wrote, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. This is the profound truth at the heart of Jungian relationship psychology. True love isn't about finding someone who completes you, it's about meeting someone who catalyzes your completion within yourself. But how do you begin this process of conscious relationship? It starts with recognizing your own projections and taking responsibility for your unconscious material. Projection in relationships is nearly universal. We all do it to some degree. The critical difference is whether we become aware of our projections or remain unconscious of them throughout our lives. Here are some signs that you might be projecting onto your partner. You experience intense, immediate attraction that feels destined or meant to be. You idealize them, seeing them as perfect or as the answer to all your problems. You feel they understand you completely, even without much communication. You experience extreme emotional reactions to their behavior, either positive or negative. You find yourself repeatedly disappointed when they don't fulfill expectations you never actually communicated. Jung observed that what we call falling in love often involves a massive projection of our unconscious material onto another person. We don't see them clearly, we see them through the lens of our Anima/Animus and shadow projections. This isn't necessarily bad. These projections can initiate relationships that eventually become conscious and authentic. But remaining stuck in projection prevents genuine intimacy from developing. The process of withdrawing projections begins with self-awareness. When you find yourself having an intense emotional reaction to your partner, pause and ask yourself, is this really about them or is this about me? What might I be seeing in them that I've disowned in myself? What expectations am I placing on them that they never agreed to fulfill? I challenge you to try this exercise the next time you feel intensely triggered by someone close to you. Instead of assuming your reaction is justified by their behavior, ask what it might reveal about your own unconscious mind. Withdrawing projections doesn't mean you'll stop loving your partner, quite the opposite. It means you'll begin to love the real person, not the projection. And paradoxically, this kind of clear-eyed love is far more stable and satisfying than the projective kind. As you withdraw your projections, you create space for what Jung called conscious relationship. A connection between two individuals who see each other clearly and choose each other intentionally, rather than compulsively acting out unconscious patterns. This is when the real magic happens. When two people relate from a place of wholeness rather than need, choice rather than compulsion, clarity rather than projection. For Jung, the ultimate purpose of human life was individuation, the process of becoming psychologically whole and fully yourself. What many people don't realize is that relationships play a crucial role in this journey. Through intimate relationships, we encounter parts of ourselves that would otherwise remain hidden. Our partners trigger our wounds, reflect our shadows, and challenge our self-concept. In this way, they become catalysts for our individuation, if we're willing to do the inner work. Jung identified several stages in the individuation process that directly impact our relationships. First is the persona stage, where we're primarily identified with our social masks and roles. People at this stage often choose partners based on social expectations or how the relationship looks to others. Their connections tend to be conventional but lack depth. Next comes the shadow stage, where we begin confronting the disowned parts of ourselves. Relationships at this stage often involve intense conflict as we project our shadow material onto our partners. Many relationships end here because the tension becomes unbearable. Then there's the Anima/Animus stage, where we confront our inner opposite gender archetype. As we integrate these aspects, our projections diminish, and we begin to relate to our partners as they truly are, not as carriers of our unconscious content. Finally comes the self stage, where we connect with our authentic core beyond all the conditioned layers. Relationships at this stage involve two individuated people choosing each other from a place of wholeness rather than psychological need. The fascinating paradox is that truly mature love only becomes possible as we progress through individuation. The less we need someone to complete us, the more freely we can love them for who they are. As Jung wrote, "Where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, there love is lacking. The one is the shadow of the other." This understanding transforms how we approach relationships. Instead of seeking someone to make us whole, we recognize that relationships are mirrors showing us where we still need to grow. Each conflict becomes an opportunity for greater self-awareness. Each trigger points to a wound that needs healing. The question shifts from, "Is this the right person for me?" to "What is this relationship revealing about me? How can I use this connection as a vehicle for my own individuation?" When both partners approach relationship this way, something extraordinary happens. They create what Jung called a container for mutual transformation. Each supports the other's individuation process while pursuing their own. While Jung saw enormous potential for growth in relationships, he also recognized their dangers when we remain unconscious of these invisible forces. When we're unaware of our projections, we can spend decades in relationships that reinforce our wounds rather than heal them. We may repeatedly choose partners who activate our unresolved childhood trauma, recreating familiar pain rather than growing beyond it. Jung identified several relationship patterns that indicate unconscious forces at work. The puer/puella pattern, when one partner remains eternally childlike, refusing to grow up, while the other adopts a parental role. The possession pattern, when one partner's personality gradually dominates or overwhelms the others. The identification pattern, when partners lose their individual boundaries, merging into an undifferentiated emotional mass. The projection bearer pattern, when one partner serves primarily as a screen for the other's projections rather than being seen for who they truly are. These patterns create what Jung called neurotic attachments. Relationships that appear stable on the surface but actually prevent both partners from individuating. They become comfortable prisons that feel safe precisely because they're familiar, even when they cause suffering. The most dangerous aspect of unconscious relationship is that it can masquerade as love. We mistake intensity for intimacy, drama for passion, codependence for connection. We believe we've found our soulmate, when we've actually found someone who perfectly accommodates our neurosis. Marie-Louise von Franz warned, "If you are not conscious of a projection, you find yourself in a state where you take something in your mind for something that exists objectively outside, which is an inferior state of relatedness to reality. You think you know your partner, but actually you don't know him or her at all." This is why becoming conscious of these invisible forces is so crucial. Without awareness, we remain trapped in repeating patterns, choosing partners who reinforce rather than challenge our limited self-concept. The good news is that becoming conscious of these patterns is itself transformative. Simply recognizing your projections begins to dissolve them. Understanding the invisible forces shaping your attractions gives you the freedom to choose differently. So how do you apply Jung's profound insights to your actual love life? How do you move from unconscious projection to conscious relationship? Here are practical steps you can take. First, pay attention to your attraction patterns. Who are you consistently drawn to? What qualities do your partners tend to share? What roles do you find yourself playing in relationships? These patterns reveal your Anima/Animus projections and shadow material. Second, notice your emotional triggers. When you have an intense reaction to your partner's behavior, whether positive or negative, pause and ask what this might reveal about your own unconscious mind. Our strongest emotional reactions often point directly to our shadow material. Third, distinguish between projective fantasy and reality. Ask yourself, am I relating to the actual person in front of me, or to my image of them? This question alone can bring tremendous clarity to your relationships. Fourth, take responsibility for your projections. Rather than blaming your partner for not fulfilling your unconscious expectations, recognize that these expectations come from within you. They reveal your own psychological needs and wounds. 5th, engage in active imagination, a Jungian technique where you dialogue with your inner figures. Have conversations with your anima or animus in your imagination. Ask what they're seeking in your relationships, what they need from you rather than from others. 6th, work with a dream journal. Jung found that our dreams often reveal our projections with startling clarity. Pay special attention to dreams about your partner or romantic interests. They provide windows into your unconscious expectations. 7th, practice conscious love. This means choosing your partner anew each day, seeing them as they truly are rather than as you need them to be. It means loving their authentic self, not your projection onto them. 8th, recognize that conflict can be growth. When tensions arise in your relationship, ask what they might be teaching you about yourself. Conflict often emerges precisely when our projections are being challenged, when reality doesn't match our unconscious expectations. Finally, pursue your own individuation. The healthiest relationships are between two people who are each committed to their own psychological growth. As you become more whole within yourself, you'll project less onto others and love more authentically. As Jung himself said, the greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insoluble. They can never be solved but only outgrown. Recognizing the invisible forces that shape our love lives doesn't diminish the magic of love, it deepens it. When we become conscious of our projections, we don't love less, we love more authentically. We don't experience less wonder, we experience more genuine connection. The journey from projective fantasy to conscious love isn't easy. It requires courage to face your own shadow, discipline to withdraw your projections, and compassion to accept both yourself and your partner as imperfect human beings. Music swells slightly, but the rewards are immeasurable. As you become more conscious in love, you'll find less drama but more depth, less intensity but more intimacy, less idealization but more acceptance, less need but more choice, less fear but more vulnerability, less projection but more connection. This is the alchemy that Jung described, the transformation of base psychological material into the gold of conscious relationship. This is love not as Hollywood portrays it, but as the soul experiences it, a vehicle for mutual growth and individuation. In the end, Jung's insights about love aren't just psychological theories, they're invitations to a more authentic way of being in relationship. They challenge us to see love not as something that happens to us, but as something we consciously create through our own psychological work. The invisible forces of anima, animus, and shadow will always influence our attractions. But awareness gives us choice. We can move from being unconscious victims of these forces to conscious participants in our own love stories. As you leave this video, I invite you to approach your relationships with new eyes, to see them as mirrors reflecting your own unconscious mind, and as vessels for your own transformation. Remember that every conflict, every disappointment, every moment of connection is an opportunity to know yourself more deeply. If this exploration of Jung's perspective on love has resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more insights into the depths of Jungian psychology. Share this video with someone who might benefit from understanding these invisible forces in their own relationships. And remember, falling in love isn't random. Discover Jung's two invisible forces. The journey to conscious love begins with understanding the unconscious mind, and that journey is available to anyone brave enough to undertake it.